In 1969, NASA recorded the clearest footage of the moon landing that has ever existed. Then, sometime in the 1980s, they recorded over the tapes. What you've watched your whole life is a camera pointed at a television screen. That story has a second half, and almost nobody has heard it. 4 months ago, we went back. Here's a number that should be more famous than it is. The last time a human being left low Earth orbit was December 1972, Apollo 17. After that, for 54 years, every single person who went to space stayed in a shell about 250 miles up. That's the International Space Station. 250 miles. The moon is 1,000 times farther. So for over half a century, the farthest any human had ever been from Earth was a record set in 1970, 248,655 miles, and it was set by accident. That was Apollo 13. The oxygen tank had already exploded. They couldn't land, they couldn't turn around, so they were forced onto a loop around the far side and flung farther out than anyone intended. Humanity's distance record was a failed mission's emergency maneuver, and it stood for 56 years. On April 6, 2026, 4 people broke it. April 1, 2026. 6:35 in the evening, Launch Complex 39B, Kennedy Space Center. 4 people, Reid Wiseman, commander, Victor Glover, pilot, Christina Koch and Jeremy Hansen, mission specialists, Hansen flying for the Canadian Space Agency. They reached orbit and then did the thing nobody had done since 1972. They lit the engine again and left. The maneuver is called trans-lunar injection. It's the moment a spacecraft stops orbiting Earth and starts falling toward the moon. 9 days ahead of them. No landing, no lunar orbit. One pass around the far side and back, a trajectory called free return, where the moon's own gravity throws you home even if every engine fails. The same trajectory Apollo 13 was forced onto. This time on purpose. April 6th, they passed 4,067 miles above the far side of the moon and had 7 hours of nothing to do but look. The first thing they photographed was Earth setting, not rising, setting. Our planet slipping behind the edge of the moon and disappearing. In 1968, the Apollo 8 crew took Earthrise, probably the most reproduced photograph in history. This is the other half of that motion, and until April, no human eye had seen it in 54 years. Then something happened that wasn't the main event, but is the strangest image of the mission. From where they were, the moon passed in front of the sun. A total solar eclipse seen from deep space. The crew put on eclipse glasses, in a spacecraft, 250,000 miles from Earth, and photographed the moon lit from behind, a black disk rimmed in white. And then there was the surface, not the near side we've all memorized. The far side, the hemisphere that never faces Earth, which no human had photographed with a modern camera. Hertzsprung Basin with 2 concentric rings of mountains stacked inside each other. Vavilov Crater. Birkhoff raking low light across its floor. Oriental Basin, the enormous impact ring on the western edge. These are not simulations. These are photographs taken through a window by a person holding a camera. And while they were out there, they crossed a line. 252,757 miles from Earth. The farthest any human being has ever been from this planet. Apollo 13's 56-year record, beaten by 4,021 miles. Now, the honest version, because the honest version is more interesting. They didn't break it with a bigger rocket. They broke it with orbital mechanics and timing. 3 things lined up. 1. Free return means you loop past the moon rather than settling into orbit around it, which carries you farther out. 2. The moon's orbit isn't a circle. In April 2026 it was near a distant apogee, about 405,000 miles from Earth, farther than during any Apollo flight. And 3. The injection burn was timed for maximum efficiency, so the record was partly a gift from the moon's own geometry, which, if you think about it, is a fitting bookend. The old record came from a failed mission that got thrown too far. The new one came from a mission that arrived when the moon happened to be leaning away. 9 days, 1 hour, 32 minutes, 695,000 miles flown. Splashed on April 10th, in the Pacific off San Diego. Which brings us back to the tapes. In 1969, the sharpest signal Apollo 11 sent home was recorded onto telemetry tape at Goldstone and Honeysuckle Creek. What the world watched was a lower quality conversion, broadcast live. The high-fidelity tapes went into storage, got folded into a magnetic tape shortage, and were reused. Overwritten. Gone. The best record of the most significant thing our species has ever done was erased for tape stock. Now look at what Artemis II came home with. High-resolution digital stills, shot in RAW through the Orion windows. On cameras the crew trained on for months. They ran lunar targeting drills before launch, so they'd know exactly which features to catch in the 7 hours they had. Every frame downlinked, archived, catalogued with an ID and released publicly within days. You can download every one of these images right now, for free, in full resolution, because they belong to you. Nobody is going to record over these. Artemis II was a test flight. It proved the rocket, the capsule, the life support, the heat shield, and the people. It did not land. The landing is the next one. But the 54-year gap is closed. There are human eyes that have seen the far side of the moon again, and this time they had 30 megapixels and a hard drive. The strange part is how few people looked. This happened in April. The images sat in a public NASA gallery for 4 months, free in full resolution, Earth setting behind another world, an eclipse from 250,000 miles out, and most people scrolled past it. Go look at them.